It's pouring rain outside. Today seems like a good day to build a guitar. Every day seems like a good day to build a guitar, really. Surely you guys remember this DIY kit.
Don't call me Shirley.
This is the JZ-6 kit from Pitbull Guitars, or as you might remember, I called it the Not a Fender Bass 6 kit because I thought it was going to be a clone of Fender Bass 6, but it actually turned out to be quite a bit different, and not necessarily in a good way. And so I got your guys' opinion on some upgrades that we could do to make this thing a little bit cooler, and I'm really excited to try it out. So I'm Dan, this is Guns and Guitars, let's get started. Alright, so first things first, I think this pick guard just has to go. It looks too ridiculous, especially with that 5-way switch in the upper horn. That just looks wrong, in my opinion. Second major issue that I think we need to fix is this body is incredibly unbalanced. I was trying to figure out why this looks so weird from a typical Fender-style offset design, and I just couldn't quite place my finger on it until I actually got out a ruler and measured how off balance it is. So, measuring from the center line, nearly a ½ inch off balance there, but the real bad part is actually down here. So we're off by nearly a whole inch down here. So, I could do a couple of things. I could either reroute this neck pocket and tilt it, and then fill and re-drill the bridge, fill and re-drill the tremolo. I could shift this whole center line essentially so that it goes down the center of the body. But I think what I'm gonna do instead is there's still something just off about this shape. This lower horn right here and this lower bout, they just don't sit well with me. And so I think I'm just going to cut a little bit off, trim it, so it's a little more balanced, and it'll give it probably a little bit more of a custom look as well, which I think won't hurt. And then of course we're gonna redo the pick guard. I think I'm gonna fill in this upper horn section right here because I think I'm gonna go with the traditional switches that you would see on a Bass 6. As opposed to a 5-way selector switch. And then the 3 most requested upgrades from you guys in my kit review video is that you wanted to see 1, a humbucker placed in this empty spot right here, and I think that's a great idea. So this is actually gonna have 4 pickups. And then you also wanted to see, number 2, a piezo tunematic, which should be pretty cool considering I've never heard a piezo on a Bass 6 before, so that'll be cool. And then the last one kind of goes along with that piezo is you guys wanted to see an active preamp, and so we're going to install an active preamp to make that piezo sound nice and full and rich as well. And then you'll be able to use that on the magnetic pickups as well to give some really cool extra tones. So this thing is going to be really cool and sound really cool when it's done, but we got a lot of work before we get there. And one more thing I forgot to mention, as I'm doing this, I'm going to try my best not to use my big, large-scale manufacturing tools that I've been investing in lately for my custom guitar brand. I'm going to keep this more of a grassroots build, you know, going back to the beginnings of my channel, and we're just going to build a DIY kit using basic tools that most DIY people have. So I was about to just clamp this thing down and cut it out with my trim router. That's what I would do if I didn't have a bandsaw, and I'm just gonna use the bandsaw. I know I said I wasn't gonna use any of my big equipment, but it's just gonna be so much faster. You guys have seen me do this on my channel 100 times. You don't need to see me do it again. I'm using the bandsaw. here I am again playing with stuff that I probably should not be playing with because I don't fully understand it, but in the spirit of trying new things, the reason why I'm trying some new things is not because I'm bored of my stains and dyes and natural oil finishes. I still love that. I still think that's the most beautiful way to finish a guitar. But I do want to come up with more at-home DIY ways to finish a guitar that don't require a lot of expensive equipment like spray guns and spray booths and a bunch of knowledge and how to handle dangerous chemicals and stuff. So that's the reason why I'm experimenting. Man, I don't think this finish could have turned out any better. It turned out so good, in fact, that last week I made a video dedicated to the process of how I did this. So if you are interested in a step-by-step tutorial to do a fabric top epoxy resin finish, check out that video. So I'm just going to go ahead and move on. So for the electronics, we're going to do something kind of crazy. Those of you who follow my other custom bass builds, you know that I'm a huge fan of 1/4-inch rod magnets for pickups. And so I was trying to find, since you guys requested 3 singles and a humbucker, I was trying to find a set of pickups that had 1/4-inch magnets and came in both a set of 3 singles as well as a humbucker. And to answer that question, there's only one company that does it, and that is Dragonfire. I'm a huge fan of Dragonfire pickups, and they are some of the best value pickups in the industry, in my opinion. And so I've got a neck, middle, and bridge set, as well as a humbucker to go with it. And then we're getting real crazy. You guys requested a piezo in the bridge. So I got this Tunematic piezo bridge off of eBay. I don't remember the seller off the top of my head, but I will put a link in the description to that. And then, to further complicate things, we have an active preamp. And I'll put a link to this down in the description as well. As far as the control layout, we're gonna have our 4 switches for our 4 pickups. So on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. And then we have our piezo. And so we'll have a blend pot to blend the magnetic pickups with the piezo pickup. And then we'll have our controls for the preamp: volume, bass, middle, and treble. And I didn't think about this before we got started, but I really wanted to install a North Series South switch for the humbucker. That way I could split it and have this pickup be hum canceling with any of the first 3 pickups. So if I wanted, you know, this pickup and this pickup, or this pickup and this pickup, or this pickup and this pickup, no matter what, I'd have hum canceling between the 2. So I think I'm going to install that switch, and I think while I'm at it, I'm also going to install an active passive bypass switch. I think that anytime you do an active preamp, you should install an active passive bypass switch just in case your battery dies in the middle of a gig. All right, for the tuning machines on this, I am using these Music Lily Pro locking tuners because we got a tremolo. I thought that locking tuners would be necessary. In the past, I haven't really cared much for Music Lily locking tuners. I've used their really cheap ones in the past, like the ones that you used to be able to get for like 10 or 15 bucks for the set. These are more like $25 for a set, and it's their Pro line. And then I think they have one that's even higher, the Ultra line, which is like supposed to compete with like Godot and like a lot of the other higher end ones. So this is their mid-range one. And for $25, I'm really impressed. I think it's a really good value. Pitbull Guitars offers an optional upgrade that I highly recommend you take advantage of. If you don't buy copper foil tape in bulk like I typically do, then you can add just a little bit as an add-on to your kit purchase. Adam was nice enough to include quite a bit for me. I imagine this is probably what your upgrade gets you, that much, which is plenty for a guitar. And I assume this foil tape that he sends has a conductive adhesive. So of course we will test that to make sure. Quick test to make sure the adhesive is conductive. Continuity. Continuity, perfect. All right, guys, so some good news and some bad news. The good news is everything works, surprisingly, at least according to the screwdriver tap test. We'll see what it sounds like when we got all the strings on it. The bad news is, despite all the routing that I did, I don't have enough for all the wiring and the pots and the switches, the preamp, and the battery underneath the pickguard. In fact, everything fits just fine except for the battery, which means I'm going to need to make a separate battery compartment on the back. I was hoping to not have to do that, but honestly, it is a good thing. It'll just make battery changes so much more easy, so you don't have to remove the pickguard to replace the battery. The only problem is I don't have any battery cavities on hand, so I'm just going to do it the old-fashioned way. I'm going to route out a little compartment, and then I'm going to make a little battery cover. This will be good because it's white, so it'll match, and it's for a telly, so I'm never going to use it anyway. All right, we're not done with the upgrades yet, just a couple more left. This is the plastic nut that came with the kit, and because this thing has a tremolo, we're going to toss that aside. This is a bone nut that Pitbull offers as an optional upgrade. I think it's just a few bucks to upgrade your nut to a bone nut, and I highly recommend that you do that. Now, because this kit has a tremolo, I would actually recommend upgrading to a Graphtec, but since Pitbull went ahead and sent me this bone nut, I think that's going to do good enough. So all I got to do now is file that down to the right size and then put on the strings. Now for strings, here I've got some Labellas. Now if you're a guitar player, you might not be familiar with the brand Labella, but for bass, they make incredible bass strings. And so I expect their bass 6 strings to be just as good. So I'm excited to try those out. So I ran into a snag that I thought I might run into, and that's that these tuners are made for guitars, not for basses. And so this super low E string doesn't even come close to fitting. Now I've always wondered, because they don't make locking bass tuners, if there is a way to adapt these to work for bass strings. And so we're gonna try that out today. We might as well, as long as we've come this far. So I'm gonna slowly drill this out, just one progressively larger drill bit at a time until we can accommodate this string, and hopefully it works. All right, there we go. Even some room to spare.